The desert stretched endlessly beneath the scorching sun, shimmering with waves of heat that distorted the horizon. Dust devils spiraled in the distance, dancing like restless spirits. For Captain Rafiq al-Khalid, commander of the Falcon Squadron, the desert was both home and battlefield. His MiG-29 fighter jet gleamed in the morning light, a steel predator waiting to strike. Around him, ground crews rushed, loading missiles and fueling the machines of war. The air smelled of kerosene and sand, the scent of battle. Over the radio, intelligence briefings poured in. Enemy bombers had been sighted on approach, protected by the latest in electronic warfare systems. If they reached the city, devastation was inevitable. Rafiq's task was simple but near impossible: intercept and destroy before they crossed into civilian airspace. He slid his helmet on, the world narrowing into the HUD display inside his visor. His squadron called him the Falcon, not just for his name but for his uncanny ability to strike from above with unrelenting precision. Today, however, even the Falcon knew the odds were stacked against them. The sky, once serene, was about to become a graveyard of steel and fire. Engines roared like thunder as the Falcon Squadron leapt into the sky. 12 jets climbed in perfect formation, wings slicing through the blazing blue. Rafiq took point, his jet an extension of his own instincts. Falcon 1 to squadron, spread wide, altitude attack formation. His voice was calm, steady, betraying none of the dread clawing at his chest. Radar pings confirmed what intelligence had warned: a massive enemy formation, their silhouettes like dark vultures moving in the upper stratosphere. Leading them were 4 electronic jamming aircraft, shielding a dozen bombers. Behind, a vanguard of fighter escorts waited like wolves. Missiles locked. Warnings blared. The first exchange came in a storm of contrails and explosions. Rafiq banked hard left, narrowly avoiding a radar-guided missile that screamed past him and detonated in the distance. To his right, Falcon 4 disintegrated in a ball of flame, the pilot's scream cut off mid-transmission. The sky erupted into chaos. Jets spiraled, flares streaked, and thunderous detonations shook the heavens. Rafiq's hands moved instinctively, launching countermeasures, weaving through radar locks, retaliating with his own missiles. One bomber fell, its massive bulk breaking apart like a burning whale, but more pressed forward. The desert below bore silent witness as steel rained from the heavens. Despite the ferocity of the squadron, the enemy's electronic shield held firm. Missiles lost guidance, radar screens flickered with static, and communication lines crackled into silence. Falcon 1 to base. Jammers are too strong. We can't get through. Static answered him. Rafiq's heart pounded. He had studied the enemy's tactics for months, but the reality of facing them was worse than any simulation. Their shield made them untouchable, their bombers creeping closer with each second. Then it appeared, dark against the sky, larger than anything else. An enemy flagship bomber, a monstrosity designed for long-range devastation. Its underbelly carried a payload capable of leveling the city in one strike. It was the shadow of death they had all feared, the weapon whispered about in command briefings, the Deathbird. Every instinct screamed at Rafiq that this was the true target. The rest was distraction. If the Deathbird survived, nothing else mattered. He gritted his teeth. Falcon Squadron, focus all fire on the lead bomber. Break their shadow, or we fall beneath it. The squadron rallied, pushing their battered jets beyond their limits. The Deathbird's escorts swarmed like hornets, locking on to anything that approached. Rafiq dove into the fray, his jet slicing between missile trails. A fighter tailed him, guns spitting fire. He yanked the stick, pulled a corkscrew maneuver, and watched as the enemy overshot. One squeeze of his trigger, and the fighter erupted into shrapnel. Falcon 8's voice broke through the comms. "I've got lock, firing now." A missile streaked toward the Deathbird, but its jamming field bent the radar, causing it to veer harmlessly away. The giant bomber lumbered forward, implacable, like death itself. "Falcon 8, break!" Rafiq shouted, but it was too late. A retaliatory missile found its mark, and the pilot's scream was swallowed by static. The squadron was being ripped apart. Rafiq steadied his breathing. His father, also a pilot, once told him, "A falcon does not fear the shadow it casts. It hunts in it." He knew what he had to do. "Falcon Squadron, cover me. I'm going for a direct strike." Protests filled the radio, but he silenced them with authority. "That's an order. Hold them back." He pushed his jet into afterburner, the engines shrieking as he tore through the maelstrom. Missiles rained from both sides, but his eyes never left the colossal Deathbird. Rafiq's jet screamed toward the Deathbird, weaving between escorts and clouds of flak. Every alarm in his cockpit blared: missile lock, overheating engines, low fuel. None of it mattered. The massive bomber loomed ahead, its wingspan stretching like the shadow of a god. He targeted its engines, fired 2 missiles, and watched them vanish in the electronic haze. Ineffective. The Deathbird's defense cannons opened fire, streams of tracer rounds slicing through the sky. One grazed his right wing, tearing metal, but the Falcon held steady. He had one option left: a suicide run. "Base command, this is Falcon 1, he transmitted, his voice calm. "If I don't return, tell my mother, the sky carried me home." Then he cut the channel. Rafiq angled his jet upward, climbing higher than the Deathbird, pushing past the limits of his machine until warning lights glowed red. At the peak of his climb, he flipped, inverted, and dove, his jet turning into a spear hurled by the heavens themselves. The Falcon became the shadow. The Deathbird's defenses fired wildly, desperate to stop him. Missiles arced, cannons roared, but Rafiq's jet cut through like a comet. At the last moment, he armed his final payload and screamed into the radio, "For the city!" The collision lit the sky. His jet slammed into the Deathbird's fuselage, detonating its fuel tanks. A cataclysmic explosion erupted, tearing the monstrous bomber apart in a chain reaction. Flames engulfed the heavens, debris raining like meteors into the desert. For a brief second, silence followed. Then the enemy formation faltered, leaderless, their jammers disrupted. Falcon Squadron, what remained of them, struck hard, downing the surviving bombers and fighters. The shadow of death was lifted. When the smoke cleared, only 4 members of Falcon Squadron returned to base. Their faces were pale, eyes hollow, but their voices carried a solemn pride. The city had been saved. Children played in streets that would have been rubble, families prayed in mosques that would have been ash, and life continued because one man chose to sacrifice everything. In the desert airbase, Rafiq's name was carved into stone, the inscription reading, "He flew not to kill, but to shield." The Falcon who became the shadow, and in that shadow, gave us the light. Legends spread quickly, of the lone pilot who dove from the heavens to destroy the Deathbird. Soldiers whispered his name before battle, citizens painted falcons on walls, and mothers told their children that the sky itself had wings watching over them.